Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's our last week of new content and we're going to finish up with some polar coordinates. This is very similar to kind of where we started with the unit circle. There's just one extra little tweak. We've actually introduced these ideas when we were learning the unit circle. Remember we played Battleship? Same thing. So let me remind you how this works. A normal XY pair, you think like, oh, you have the Y-axis here, you have the X-axis here, whoa. Then you'd give me points like 1, 2. And 1, 2 would mean go right 1 and up 2 and you'd be up here somewhere. Now, this is a different looking grid. This is a polar grid. So you could throw all that XY stuff out the window because we're going to describe points differently now. All of the points that we describe are going to look like this. R, theta. R is the radius. So you think of like how big is the radius of the circle. If I say 1, this would be the first ring. This is the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh. Now, this is a circle. So this is still 1, this is still 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's still the seventh ring. So you first decide what ring you're on. Then you have to think of the angle, so theta. This works the same way as on a unit circle. So this is in radians, this is your 0, and then we would say, okay, this is pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 3 over 6 is 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 7, I'm reducing my fractions, 8 over 6 is 4 pi over 3, 9 over 6, 10 over 6, and then 11 pi over 6. So those are your angles. So the first thing you're going to do is just think, okay, it works like the unit circle. I'm going to tell you what ring we're on and then what the angle is. When there's no negatives, it's pretty easy. So let's graph a couple points. First one, plot A. 3, 2 pi over 3. So what 3 tells you is that you are on the third ring. 1, 2, 3. I am somewhere on this circle. That's what 3 tells me. So I'm on the third ring, and then I have to find the angle 2 pi over 3. So 2 pi over 3, this is 1 pi over 3. Here's 2 pi over 3 right here. So that is the angle 2 pi over 3, and since it says 3 first, we are on the third ring. So this is 3, 2 pi over 3. That's point A. Let's do another one. 4 pi over 2. 4, so if I look at 4, I'll do this one in red. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's this guy, and pi over 2 is right there. So on the fourth ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, I go to the angle pi over 2. The pi over 2 is 90 degrees. That's right here. So this would be point B. I'll do the last one in blue. Point C is 5, pi. This is kind of tricky because you want to be over here. Like when people think of 5, like, oh, it's going to be over here. It's the fifth ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on the fifth ring, and then I got to find the angle pi. So pi, that's pi over 2. Here's pi. So that would be 5, pi. Okay? If you think about it in rectangular coordinates, that would be -5, 0. But this is polar coordinates. So it says fifth ring, and then at pi radians. That's what that means. Those are when they're positive. That's pretty straightforward. Let's talk about the weird stuff, the negatives. When the radius is positive, it's not that big of a deal. This is going to be the same thing. So I'm on the second ring, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go to -2 pi over 3. So -2 pi over 3, well, this would be, I'm on the second ring, so this would be -1 pi over 3. Remember, negative means you're going to go clockwise. That's 1 pi over 3, and then I would have to go another one, so -2 pi over 3. So this is -2 pi over 3 in radians, and if you want the second ring, then that's going to put you right here. So that would be point A. Now's where it gets weird. When the radius is negative, here's my suggestion. Start with the angle, and then think about the radius. So if the angle is 5 pi over 6, I'm going to look at 5 pi over 6 first. I'm going to say 5 pi over 6, that's right here. This is 5 pi over 6. So if I were to label all the points, this would be 1 5 pi over 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I said 3, pi over 6, that'd be right here. 4, pi over 6, 5, pi over 6, 6, Those are all the positive radii. But when you make the radius negative, what ends up happening is it's like going to the other side. So this would be, continue the pattern, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1. This would be 0. This would be -1. This would be -2. This would be -3. And this would be -4, 5 pi over 6. Right there. So that would be point B. Now, that point could be described other ways. You could say +4, -pi over 6. Or +4, 11 pi over 6. There's other ways you can write these polar coordinates. So when you see a negative radius, start with the angle and then go to the other side. It's going to be pi across, pi radians across. Let's do another one just like that, and I'll erase all this stuff. So 5 pi over 3. First, since that's positive, I'm going to start there. 5 pi over 3 is down here. This is 5 pi over 3. Okay, this is 6 pi over 3, so this is 5 pi over 3 right here. 60-degree reference angle. If I start to label them, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any of those points, this would be 3 comma 5 pi over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 comma 5 pi over 3. But since it's negative 2, I'm going to just follow this pattern. Say 0, this would be negative 1, this would be negative 2. So negative 2, 5 pi over 3 is right there. That is point C. It's kind of weird when the radius is negative. It just means go through the middle to the other side. So once you practice plotting these 2 points, hit pause and come back in a second. And we're back. So 3 comma pi over 2. What'd you get? Well, let's start on the third ring. 1, 2, 3. So I'm somewhere in here. 1, 2. I'm on the third ring. So I think it's going to be down here somewhere. 1, 2, 3. This is the third ring. I could be anywhere on here, but I know where 3 pi over 2 is. So 3 comma 3 pi over 2. So that's 270 degrees. 90, 180 down here. That would be your point A. 3 pi over 2 is the angle, and you're on the third ring out. One more. So 1 means I'm on the first ring, so I'm somewhere on this ring, and then negative pi over 3, if this is 0, negative pi over 3 is down here, so that would be point B. All we're doing is practicing plotting our points. Once you get your Schoology checkpoint, you're done, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't finished your other remote learning assignments, go ahead and do those. They're test points. They can easily bump those grades up, and that's where you're going to end. So I hope everybody has a good end of their year, and we'll do one more little goodbye thing later, but that's it for content. So good job, guys.